G'day, thank you very much, Bex. It's very kind words of you. Yeah, I thought I'd mix it up a little bit tonight actually and do some stuff that I've never done before. So you'll have to excuse me if I fuck it up because I probably will, but that's all part of the journey. I have been a dairy farmer now, I think, for coming up 15 years. I did 5 years sheep and beef as well when I first left school. So I've got an understanding of what that side of the sector takes. And yeah, I've been involved with Farmfit, I guess, for 5 years now. I think it is. I first started that, and it's all about, I guess, encouraging farmers to be proactive with their physical and mental health. And one of the things I've learned is that it's really difficult to have good mental health without good physical support. You virtually can't. There's a lot of physical things that help boost our mental skills and our mental fitness, whatever you want to call it. So that, I guess, was a big part of starting up FarmFit and getting people, fit and ready physically, but also mentally, I think is really key because I guess as farming's changed, certainly in my lifetime, but the generations previous, it's become less physical, but certainly more mentally stressful, mentally physical maybe. And it's a different sort of fatigue and stress that we deal with than what my uncle and nana and granddad used to deal with. So farming's changed a lot, and it continues to change. So yeah, I just think it's important that we look after each other. And I think at the end of the day, I love our little country down in this little corner of the world. I absolutely love farming, and most importantly, I think the people that do it are pretty special humans. So I try and do what I can, I guess, to help and inspire them to be the best they can be and make it through, I guess, is the key. I'm a massive believer in stories and their power. I love to tell a story. I love to hear stories. And one of the things that I've really learned over the last 5 to 10 years in particular is the power of our own story, the story we tell ourselves. So I'm going to start off with a story because I think it's engaging and I think you always learn something from it. And it's a good way to, I guess, get the ball rolling. But it's a story that's probably not going to be very relevant for a lot of you because it's got nothing to do with fucking farming. But there's a lesson in it that I've learnt that I've had to, it's probably been the hardest lesson, I think, as a rural male to actually understand and use, and it's something I continuously have to remind myself of. So hopefully you enjoy the story, and I think the lesson in it is the key starting point for looking after ourselves. So I'm 37 now, but at the age of 18, I was lucky enough to discover the sport of boxing, which is quite an unusual sport. It's not very common in New Zealand, but and it was not something that I'd ever been exposed to. But through the rugby club, I got the opportunity to have a nudge and get in the ring as a fundraiser, sorry, for the rugby club. So it's a whole it's a whole nother yarn, the actual experience, but it was a very life-changing moment for me. And is a big reason why I've been successful in making it to 37, I guess, in a farming career and sports and all that. But fast forward, I'd had my first fight, loved it, fell in love with the sport and the challenge and the fear and what I learned about myself, all the discipline that it brings. Um, and I'd been training for quite a while at this point, and I got my second boxing fight lined up, and it was down in Palmerston North, the Palmerston North Boxing Championships, and I was, pretty nervous going there because I knew it was a big tournament. Went down with my trainer, and we turn up morning of the fights, and you have to weigh in. And so all the boxes, you get 1 hour between 9 and 10 usually to weigh in. Everyone's got to be on weight. So you all lined up line up there, and we're standing there in line, and my trainer goes and hands my booklet in, and comes back and he's like, "Yep, you've got a fight. You've got an opponent that matches you, same weight and similar experience." I was like, "Great." And he goes, I know his trainer, and that's him over there, which is cool. So I look over, and there's a fella there. He had a bit of a mohawk, and he's from Counties Manukau, white fella, but he had a flash track suit on. And instantly, when I saw Counties Manukau, I was like, "Oh, that's South Auckland, bloody lovely. That's this could be a tough guy." And he had a mean look about him. I was like, "Oh, this is great, thanks." And that was all good. And we're in the line to weigh in, and he was ahead of me. And I was just sort of watching him, and you sort of try and eye the opponent up and see if he's looking confident or whatnot. And this guy was looking pretty confident. He had this big tracksuit on. It was zipped right up to his chin. Full leggings, the works. And he gets to go on the scales. And he takes his shoes off, takes his trackies off, and unzips his top, and he's just got a singlet on. And no shit, from here down right to his ankles is just tattoos, the works, like right down his sleeves, neck, chest. There wasn't much skin showing on his body, and I was just like, and they weren't nice tattoos either. They were pretty rough looking things. And I sort of turned to my trainer. I was like, "Fucking hell, he's from South Auckland. He's covered in tattoos. And he's got a mohawk. He's going to be a hard bastard." And I go to the trainer. I was like, "Fucking hell, what's the setup here?" And my trainer just looked at me and said, "Oh, don't worry. Tough stickers don't mean you're tough." And I goes, "Oh, fuck, really?" And he goes, "That's right. You're a farm boy. You'll be tough. You'll be right." And I was like, secretly just sort of quite intimidated, I guess, and quietly shitting myself. Um, and anywho, we got it, weighed in and all that was all good. And you go away for a few hours, and you usually fight in the afternoon, and you get your time and whatnot. And come back to the hall and get warmed up and ready to go, and you're psyching yourself up. You're as nervous as you could possibly imagine you could ever be. The shakes and the adrenaline and the fears and the doubts and that all come creeping in, and didn't help that I was already a little bit intimidated. But we walk out to the ring, and he's just at the opposite corner of the ring, just absolutely giving me the Mike Tyson stare down. Just he looked ropeable, like an Angus bull in a corner. Just looked like he just wanted to have a piece of me. And I was sort of looking at my trainer. I was like, "Fucking hell, this, this isn't what this farm boy signed up for." Um, but anyway, the bell rings, and once you're in there, you can't really jump out of the ring. So once you're in there, you're sort of committed to it. And the bell rings, and just like he looked he was going to, he just came after me like a fucking rabid dog. And I think he was trying to impersonate Mike Tyson, just highly aggressive, wanting to take my head off. And so for the first round, I proceeded to run around the ring, basically trying to get away from him, and trying to hold my own as best as I could. And to be fair, he quite convincingly won that round. But I did notice when the bell rang to finish the round, he was huffing and puffing a bit, and in all honesty, I was quite a good runner, so it wasn't too hard for me to move my feet and get away from him. I certainly didn't throw too many punches. I was just trying to avoid all of his. And I went back to the corner, and I said, "Bloody hell, I said to my trainer, I was like, "Fucking hell, he's he wants to take my head off." And he goes, "Yeah, that's the idea with boxing. You meant to try and hurt the other fella. Now, get out there and give him some of his own medicine back." And I was like, "Fuck, I'll try." Um, anyway, for the first 30 seconds of the second round, he came out and did exactly the same thing, just his best Mike Tyson impersonation, just trying to take my head off, swinging for the fences. Um, but after about 30 seconds, he started taking these big pauses in between the attacks. It was quite obvious that he was getting buggered. He was punching himself out. So it was my turn, I guess, to start scoring some points back and getting some shots in. And by the end of the second round, he was a bit like a punching bag. In all fairness, he had worn himself out, and he didn't have too much left in the tank, just the odd haymaker, and I think I won that second round. And I went back to my corner, and the trainer said, he's absolutely fucked, just go for it. He's got nothing left in the tank. So in the third round I did. He didn't put up a lot of resistance, and I just started teeing off on him, which was great fun, great bit of payback for the first round. And what actually happened, as that third round, um, progressed for 3 minutes, you could sort of see in front of my eyes this tough-looking fellow with all the tattoos and the glare and the snarl and the aggression just melt into basically a quitter, because he took a knee with about a minute to go, and before the round, he took a knee and he had 10 seconds, and the ref ended up stopping it about 30 seconds later. He just more or less gave up in a way. Um, and you're probably thinking, what's the fucking relevance here to farming? But the lesson I learned there, I learned a few lessons, but tough stickers don't make you tough, which was great to know because I've got no tattoos. But really, it was about fatigue, and it wasn't that he wasn't tough, because he was. I had a good yarn to him afterwards, and he had a really tough upbringing in Auckland. He was a pretty, to be a skinny white boy in Auckland, South Auckland, and survive and do all right, you got to be pretty tough. It's not an easy place, and he didn't have a great environment that he was in. So he was a tough guy, but fatigue turned him into something that wasn't tough. And the lesson I really think back and take from that is that fatigue will make you be someone you're not. And, it makes cowards of us all. I really think that's very apparent in combat sports, but it's probably not something we think about on the farm. And it's not that as farmers we turn into cowards. It's that under fatigue and under that pressure, we do not act the same as what we do when we're not fatigued. And I've unfortunately had to go through this lesson on farm many bloody times, and it's one that I constantly have to keep reminding myself of, is that my behavior changes, my actions change, my decision making changes. Um, and I sometimes stop and I think, what the hell's going on here? And it's just that pure fatigue and pressure that you're under changes who you are and how you act. And I think it's such a hard lesson, particularly as a male, I think, to recognise, um, and be proactive about that. I think for a start we have to be a little bit kind to ourselves when we start behaving differently, and probably the wife is the one that notices that the first, and probably cops it the most. But sometimes it's the could be worker, could be employee owner, could be the animals that cop the short end of the stick and how we're behaving. So that's really the first lesson and understanding I want to pass on, is that it doesn't mean you're an asshole, or it doesn't mean you're bad at what you're doing. It's just that fatigue will make a liar out of who you really are. And I think that's, yeah, something that as a male I've needed to learn and relearn, and it's good to hear from others as well. So that's where I wanted to start it. Obviously a boxing story. I love the sport. It's taught me a lot about life, and there's a lot of carryover for some of those lessons into farming. So that's where I wanted to start. And the next thing I wanted to do was to do something that's completely out of my comfort zone, and do a little PowerPoint. We're going to change tack quite drastically. I had a question come in actually off Instagram around fitness for farming, and how as farmers, we all work ridiculous hours. A lot of the time it's quite physical still, and we don't have a lot of time and energy left to look after ourselves. So before I share my screen, I'll give you a little, actually I'll try and do it at the same time. I'll give you a little preview of how I came about this. Yeah, that one's, yeah, share, hold on. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So how I came about this, actually, funnily enough, the last record payout we had of $8.40 back in 2013, I think it was 13, 14, was marvelous, great times. Um, but afterwards came the most challenging times in my farming career. Um, and, about this close to going bankrupt, probably about there, right on the line for a number of years. And for a long time, actually, I didn't know how I was going to get through it. And, led me into pretty depressive times. Lost all my passion for farming, living. And it was touch and go whether the business made it, but it was probably touch and go there for a while whether I made it as well. And obviously, sharing that story is a big part of what I do now. But we're not going to talk too much about that that story in particular. But one of the things I guess is I had to change a lot about how I farmed, who I was as a person and a farmer, but mainly how I farmed. Um, because the farm wasn't performing well at all. There's a lot of things not going well. Um, and, just all the KPIs were pretty, underwhelming. Uh, Even when the payout was coming right, I still couldn't make a profit. So I was in a pretty negative hole for a long time in my business. And one of the things, I guess, one of the first steps was getting an advisor. I got in a farm advisor, and we nothing was off the table basically in what we audited about the farm system and its performance. And it took about 18 months to 2 years to get it on track, and we really got it going really good. But um, had a lot of really good conversations. Sometimes he was more of a coach than a farmer. And when I say a coach, it was more of like a mental coach for me as well, trying to get me back from being depressed and hating farming to a place where I enjoyed it and was engaging with it and being creative again and problem solving and all those sort of things. Um, and one of the things I did was I did a lot of reviewing, I guess, and self-reflection on the things that had gone wrong and why they had gone wrong, how I'd let them go wrong, um, all those sorts of things, and also what I wanted in the future. What did I want out of farming? What I wanted out of my life, and one of those things was, obviously a profitable business, a system that was sustainable, a system that got good results for the animals and the farm. So good KPIs, the animals were healthy and happy, well looked after. But most importantly, a farm system that I got a little bit of balance back. I got a little bit of time for me to get off farm because I wasn't getting off farm. I wasn't doing things that I loved. So I started coming up with this, the dream system, I guess. And I got there in the end, which was bloody awesome. But what I'm going to share with you now, I've called the farmer's lens, the framework to make the farm work. And basically, this isn't goals or anything, and it's not necessarily a model that will work for everyone, but I think it's pretty universal in one helping with decision making on farm, particularly the big things, identifying strengths and weaknesses, but most importantly, making your farm sustainable for the farm, sustainable for the animals, and most importantly, sustainable for you. So I came up with this all by myself. I'm very proud of it. It's very simple because I'm a very simple man. Well, hopefully it comes across as simple. And yeah, it all starts off with a triangle. And I picked a triangle for a very good reason. One, it's incredibly strong. You can hit it from any of those corners and it will be nice and solid and steady. It's used in construction a lot. There's a lot of triangles that are used for strength. The other reason I use the triangle is because When it's balanced, it's at its strongest. So when it's got three equal corners, is the strongest triangle you can get, I believe, and it's scalable. It can be for a small business. Doesn't matter whether you got 100 cows or 2,000 cows or however many sheep you guys like to run these days. It's scalable to any size, and I think to any business as well. So the first part of the triangle you see there is the lovely little cow that I drew up last night. Um, and every single, I would say, outstanding farmer that I've ever talked to, ever had the pleasure of looking over their farm or anything like that, um, the focus I got from them was that the cow or the animal or whatever it is that you farm or whatever is your business is the focus point around which everything happens. So it's the core in the middle, if you want to put it that way, and they're really focused on looking after that because it's so integral to into their business. I'll just click on the next slide here. It's really bloody simple, really quick. So what we have here is at the top business performance. So everyone wants to make a shit ton of money because we deserve it, because we work extremely hard in very trying conditions. So business is very important, and that's why that's at the top. We all love to focus on it. In fact, in dairy farming, the last 10 years, there's been a massive push for people to focus on their business and know their numbers. And one of the things I've learned um, over the years, and what I've seen a lot of, is that sometimes people focus so much on the business, they forget about everything else, mainly the people. So down the bottom, we have on one side people, everyone that's involved in your business. Obviously, the most important ones are you, your family, and the people that work within your business. But you can lump in there your accountants, advisors, reps, anything to do with people, the community as well, I think is quite important to have in there. And on the other side is the actual farm, the cows and grass, the nuts and bolts of it, the actual day-to-day workings of the farm. One of the things I think is really important is a lot of people are usually really good at two of these three things. Most farmers are fantastic on the farm. It's their bread and butter. That's what they grew up with, and generally they like to make money, so they learn to get good at the business part, and typically pretty shit at people, particularly in dairy farming. You get the odd person that's really good at the people and quite good at business, terrible on the farm, and you get some of these corporates that are really good at the business. Um, Sometimes either really good with the people or look after the farm. Not often you get all three. But the thing I like about this triangle is that the bigger you grow your base, the higher that peak gets. And that's what I've seen time and time again and experienced time and time again is that when you do the farm really well, you do the people really well, you grow that base, that foundation of the triangle, the business tends to grow with it. And it to a point, looks after itself. Now, that's all very well. We'll head on to the next slide. I told you it was going to be basic. We can chop between those two if we need to. So what I basically did was I wanted everything in my farm system to be balanced. I wanted to have good policies in place for my farm. I wanted it to run smoothly. I didn't want to be chasing water leaks for days on end. I didn't want to be running out of grass all the time. Things like that. That's everything to do with the farm, your water system, your grass, your stock, your crops, your maintenance, your infrastructure, your races, whatever it may be, is under that farm heading. And what I went through and did is just identified everything on farm and put it into one of those three categories. So your business, obviously your accountants, the software you use for your business to track performance, your KPIs, that all goes under business. Your people, like I've already said, anyone that's involved in you and your business, and include your community in that, because I think our connection with our urban cousins, or whatever you want to call them, is important for our social license as well. There's lots of names for them, but we'll keep it civil. Put them all in there. So identify everything on farm. Um, Obviously, the farm itself, like mating KPIs, if you're a dairy farmer, production KPIs, pasture eaten, if you're sheep and beef, your lambing results. Understand and collect all that information, and chuck them in there. Can be really simple. I literally do this on a piece of A4 paper, and just scribble fucking everywhere. I don't use computers much. Using, I guess, your understanding of the farm, your experience, and also those KPIs, those performance metrics, the data that you do have, you need to go through and do a SWOT analysis. So most important part of that is strengths and weaknesses. Identifying what's going well and what's not going well, is the key there. Um, for me, this was a really important part because it gives you the actual focus on what needs to be improved. A big one for me was mating performance and animal health. They were terrible through those low payout years, and they were, you know, all under the farm bracket, but they were actually affecting my business directly because my cost was through the roof, and my income was lower than it should have been, but it was also affecting the people in there as well. So mainly fucking me and my wife, because I was working ridiculous hours, stressed, fatigued, and she was copping the brunt of that, unfortunately. And also my accountant was getting a good workout as well. But it's really, it became really easy for me to do this sort of on the fly, and really pick out those low hanging fruit where you need to focus your attention. And if you go back to the triangle, if you have a ginormous list under the farm and a massive list under the business and a massive list under the people, as soon as you, I think I actually went through and put a tick or a cross next to those, that list of things, and it was as simple as you can see where all the ticks are and where all the crosses are, and it's pretty easy to see where you need to put your energy. One of the things I noticed I've always done is, you focus on what you're good at because you're good at it, and you get good results, so you keep doing it, and you keep focusing on it because it's easy. But one of the things we must do in anything in life is focus on the shit we're not good at, and that's the hardest thing to do because it's difficult. You don't always have the answers, and it's always challenging and always frustrating. But it's when it's out in paper like that, it's pretty easy to see. So really, it comes down to trying to balance that triangle, trying to make it strong, sustainable, that they all play into each other, that you've got a good base of the basics, and people in the farm is the foundation of your business. What I then did, once I'd done all that, I actually started using this for decision making on farm and in life, in fact. Um, so it might be that you want to change your farm systems, or we have identified a new opportunity. It might be buying the neighbours, might be leasing some more land, might bring another stock class. Is actually using this triangle as, it was almost like a lens I would put over decision making. And so you'd have this thing on the table, and you'd put this triangle on top of it and say, where does it fit in? How does it balance the triangle? How does it make that triangle unbalanced? And I found this really bloody useful, since I created it, really, of making sure that A, that it serves the business, um, B, that it improves the farm, but most importantly for me was that am I going to have to do another 10, 15 hours a week to make it work? And does that take away from my ability to be on the farm or be in the business when I need to be there? So I don't know, it just became a really good tool to sort of use for those bigger decisions on farm and make sure that sustainability is at the forefront. Because I think when we're proactive like that, we do have that time and energy to firstly serve our family, ourselves, and our community. So if you want to take a picture of that or anything or write it down, I'll leave it up for another couple of minutes. Um, yeah, so it was, yeah, the idea was to be profitable, efficient, resilient, but most of all sustainable so that I could replicate it year after year. And the other thing I wanted to touch on in terms of actual farming that may or may not help you is there's a massive push in dairy farming at the moment, or there's a push coming from Fonterra about efficiency, and it all has to do with emissions and looking after the planet, which is great. But there's this massive push for efficiency and being more efficient on farm. And I remember when I first started farming, Dairy NZ had the same push of efficiency. And it didn't go well because everyone got too efficient. We ended up with skinny cows and poor performance. And it became an animal health, animal welfare issue on a lot of places. And it's been a mindset that's been very difficult to get out of. And if you farmed through sort of the late 90s, it was basically trying to um, push dairy farmers to eat every single blade of grass there was on the farm and leave nothing behind and be incredibly efficient with the grass we're growing. And you get great pasture eaten statistics on your farm. But generally to do that, your cows are sort of, I think they came up with 90% well fed, 90% fed. So they're always a little bit hungry, um, which I don't know, I hate being fucking hungry. And turns out cows don't like it much either. So I'm going to stop sharing that if you haven't got it already. Tough titties. Boom, we can go back to that. Fantastic. So that was something that's been really integral to me, and I wanted to share it with you guys for something different. And I wanted to challenge myself by doing a bit of computer tech. What I wanted to move on to now is a bit more mental and physical fitness and some bang for buck, I guess you could call it. Some things that have helped me over the years and things I sort of think are fairly important. Bang for buck tools. My first one on the list is something else I came up with after sorting my shit out in life, and that was AAA. Um, Awareness, acceptance, and action. Pretty simple stuff. I guess as farmers, I sort of thought about it, and we have a shit ton of data and awareness about what's going on farm. As a dairy farmer, I know the condition score on my cows. I know how much palm kernel's in the bin. I know how many cows I've got, how many calves I've got. I know how many silage bales are stacked up. I know my pasture levels. In fact, I know the pasture score of every paddock on my farm. I've got all this bloody data that gives me awareness. And the more of that data I have and pay attention to, the better decisions I make on farm, right? Pretty simple. It doesn't matter whether you're a dairy farmer, sheep and beef, horticulture. If you've got good information, you can make good decisions off it, generally. We don't always get it right, but it's way better than guessing all the time. But when I thought about it, I was like, I have no idea how I am or what's coming or what I do about it. So simply for me is about the awareness is, I guess, trying to pick some data points about how I am physically and mentally. so that I can make good decisions off it. A lot of people always ask me, what's the first thing I should do for your health and fit, to get fit or to look after myself mentally. I say, I have no idea. It depends where you're at, You've got to know where you're at and what's going on for you. I alluded to, fatigue before in the first story. But what is that fatigue? Is it the physical fatigue from being out on farm, doing too much labor intensive stuff that you can perhaps tidy up for next year? Is it the fatigue from stress? Mental stress pretty much always comes out in a physical way. And it can be that you just feel absolutely knackered and you can't really think of why. It's probably up here that's fatiguing you. um, you know, taking a stock of what you're eating, what you're drinking, those sorts of things is just that first step of self-awareness that I think we completely overlook, or it's something I completely overlooked for a massive period of my life. Acceptance, I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but I certainly did. Um, for me, it was accepting that where I was in life was exactly where I put myself. Um, I think as humans go on and on, we get better at blaming other people for our problems. Um, Shit, you just got to look on the Facebook comments of a few things, and you'll soon find the shit flying. Everything is everyone else's fault, and it's not my own. So that self accountability of you know wherever you are and whatever's going on, you have some responsibility for that. It's not always all our fault, but we always have a bit of skin in that game. So accepting that was a big hurdle for me, and getting through, getting out of depression probably, and getting the farm back on track was actually as like, fucking I signed the job and the loan, and I took it on. I took on this challenge. So it's not Fonterra's fault, and it's not the farm owner's fault, and it's not the bank's fault. It's sort of their fault, but you know, ultimately it was me that put myself there. So I've got to own that, and I couldn't actually go about changing anything within myself or anything on the farm without owning it, without accepting that and owning it. And once I took ownership of it, I was like, "Fuck it, right? What are we going to do here? What needs to change, and what can I do?" Um, and that leads obviously into action. The hardest phone call I've ever had to make, I think I put it in the book, and I say this in my in-person speaking stuff. The hardest phone call I ever made was to a farm advisor, which sounds fucking stupid to me now. Um, Looking back, I sort of laugh about it, but honestly, I had his phone number for 2 weeks, um, and I really had to get over the pride I had in myself, because for me, getting in a farm advisor was quitting. Um, and mum and dad didn't raise no quitter. So I had to, for me, it was a big ego check. I actually had to get over my ego and say, I need some help here. Um, I didn't have the courage to go to a doctor or a counselor or anything like that. That was a bridge too far at that point. But um, getting in someone just to help with the farm felt like quitting, but it was the action I needed to take to get out of my misery, I think. So yeah, still to this day, the hardest phone call I've ever made to a fucking farm advisor of all things. But yeah, it's really taking actions. You can sit here and listen to podcasts and webinars and read books till the fucking cows come home, but unless you actually do something with that information or with that knowledge or with that inspiration, it doesn't really count for anything, unfortunately. We actually have to take an action, and I've been to a few speakers and listened to a shit ton of podcasts and read a lot of books, and I reckon you get a 24-hour window of inspiration, um, if that. So what I tend to do now, especially if you go to a motivation, any sort of good speaker, I think is quite inspiring and energizing. Before I go to bed, I write a few things down, the actions I'm going to take in the morning, and it might be as simple as making a phone call, or expanding on an idea, or fucking going for a walk, or doing 50 press ups, whatever it may be, is that those first couple of actions in the morning before the energy and inspiration disappears and life gets in the way of it, is to actually do something. What was next? Be your own best friend. So these are all obviously more for the mental fitness. Um, be your own best friend was all about, I guess, getting back to the story we tell ourselves. And we are pretty rough generally in our own heads about the story we tell ourselves. We're often quite negative. We're our own worst critic. And we say some pretty mean stuff in our heads sometimes and think pretty mean things, and horrible things. Well, I do anyway. Um, so being your own best friend was about changing my perspective. And I can't remember where I got this from, but it was really great. And it was basically what I did was wrote down some of those criticisms, some of those thoughts, some of the negativity, wrote them down on a piece of paper, and sounds fucking stupid as, but was standing in front of a mirror and talking to me like I was my best friend and saying those things to my best friend basically. Um, and the honest truth is, you just don't, because you wouldn't say those things to your best friend. Um, and it's quite a weird thing to do. It's something you definitely want to do in the privacy of your own bedroom, um, or bathroom. But it changes your whole perspective on how you're thinking and the story you're telling about yourself. One of the biggest things, particularly with getting fit and healthy, on that side of things, is you don't believe you can be that person. Particularly if you've been in bad habits for a while, or you've never been a sporty or exercisey sort of a person, is you just don't believe that you can be that person. That's that story you tell yourself. So you have to change that. You have to change how you talk to yourself and what you think about yourself first. I think that's like the first step, um, in trying to get fit or strong, or whatever it may be. And it might be changing who you are as a farmer, or changing who you are as a husband or a mum or a dad, or whatever it may be, is change the story. If you can control the story in your head, you can fucking do anything, I reckon. It's such a powerful thing. That's stories are what makes humans different from monkeys, basically, is we learned how to tell stories and get other people to believe them. Um, which is, that's the first thing that's sorry, not monkeys, Neanderthals, Homo sapiens as we are now, that was the thing that separated us, was storytelling and our ability to be creative and learn. Um, so if you have a go at that, it's a good laugh. I tell you, it's great fun. But yeah, hugely powerful thing to change your perspective if you're quite stuck in some negative stuff and being mean to yourself. On the back of that, in terms of actually, Um, I found this particularly helpful for the farming side of things. In particular, stress was dealing in facts, not fiction, and it speaks again to, um, some of the times I've been the most stressed on farmers when I run out. I hate fucking running out of feed for animals. It's just does my head in. There's nothing worse, whether it's cows or shit. Sheep are the bloody noisiest when they're hungry, fucking horrendous. But cows are no better. You get even 100 cows that are hungry bawling at you. It's like having 100 fucking toddlers at your knees. Just, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. It's just, I hate it with a passion. And that was always one of my biggest stresses, was running out of feed. Um, and there's a lot of ingredients that go into feeding your animals and performance and all that sort of thing. But I would always sort of catastrophize, like, fuck, if they're this hungry now, next week, I'm going to have the fucking SPCA in here. It's going to be that bad. And, there's no light, it's not going to rain, or it's going to keep raining if you're in Southland, just you sort of doomsday everything in your head. But what I found was, if I actually wrote out facts, what is the situation? What is the weather forecast? How many fucking bales do I actually have? How much actual fucking pasture is in that paddock? and just start dealing with facts. And so it's about getting your stuff, the facts are in there, but they get clouded with doomsday stuff, you catastrophize. So getting the facts out of here, putting it on the piece of paper, because you don't write that doomsday shit down. You don't write it's never going to rain again, because you know it's stupid, so you don't write it. So you just deal with the facts. Hugely important for relieving stress. It doesn't make the problem go away, but you can actually start problem solving and understanding the situation when you've got facts in front of you on a piece of paper, rather than just letting it whir around in your head. And that can be for anything, I think. There's a massive problem with anxiety and that sort of crap going on, with my generation and below. I think it's hugely important to get that stuff out of your head. Stop letting it whirl around there all day and night, and deal with those facts on the piece of paper and be nice to yourself. Um, One more in particular for, I guess, for probably more physical fitness and health, and I guess flipping the negativity script a little bit. Um, when we're negative, we often speak in statements. Um, I can't do that. It's too wet to go outside and go for a run. Things like that, simple stuff. We say it in statements. One of the tricks I learned to do was because you always say it in your head, it's too wet to go for a run. It's like a full stop. There's no arguing with that statement. It's easy to just agree with it and okay, I'm not going outside for a run. Um, but one of the little tricks I do is to turn that statement into a question. Questions are inherently open-ended. They need a response. Um, Generally, you get to choose whether you give it a negative response or a positive response. So it's too wet outside to go for a run. I'd change that to, is it too wet to go for a run outside? And I don't know, you can still say no, but at least it gives you the opportunity to be honest with yourself and say, actually, no, I've got a fucking rain jacket. I can still go outside. So nice little trick there. I use it all the time. Change that self-talk into something that's open and something that's positive rather than a negative, closed off statement. And physical stuff. So that was a few mental things. Something I've learnt yet again, just recently, is the importance of sleep. I talked about fatigue earlier. Um, I had my first weekend off last weekend, and I was absolutely fucked. To be honest, the last 3 weeks, I've done about 65 days, I think, straight, on the farm. The alarm clock goes off at about 20 to 4. And there hasn't been a lot of power naps now that I have kids. It's a little bit harder to fit those in, and I'm not as good at doing them as I used to be. But yeah, been pretty knackered. It's been really busy. Uh, not just the farm, but actually life outside the farm's been super busy. I've been trying to coach at the local boxing gym. My kids are both playing sport. My wife's playing sport and studying. So it's just been bloody hectic. And the last few weeks, I've been feeling incredibly fatigued. I've massive noticeably, my performance on farm has been pretty average in terms of how much work I get done just because I've been so slow and sluggish. And you often put off those hard jobs because you're not feeling up to it. But I had the weekend off. I fucking napped a lot. I napped like an absolute world champion, and caught up on a lot of sleep. And the difference between milking on Friday morning and milking on Monday morning was absolutely unbelievable. Like actually probably the most I've ever noticed a change. And just having a breather and sleep is the key for that. It's really hard to do. I don't know, I've pulled a couple of all-nighters in my time, and you start seeing and thinking all sorts of funky shit. It's one of the first things that throws you off your game is lack of sleep. Hard to fix sometimes, but so key. And yeah, it was such a good weekend, just being able to sleep during the day and get that caught up. Don't underestimate a power nap. absolute lifesavers. Bang for buck, one of the biggest things I ever added to my health on farm has been electrolytes. Really simple, reasonably cheap. Absolutely changed my farming life, I reckon. I wish I knew about electrolytes when I was boxing and playing footy when I was a young fella, because I think back now to, I used to spend hours on the hill spraying ragwort and gorse, and I'd take a little bottle of water with me, and then I'd go to footy training or go to boxing and sweat out another few liters, and it was just water. Like there's none of the salt or electrolytes, and I sort of used to wonder why I felt so shit. It's just because I wasn't replacing what I was sweating out and working off, food wise as well. But adding electrolytes in, absolute game changer for how you feel within yourself, but also your brain function. Um, those electrolytes, salt, magnesium, potassium, calcium, they're in every single cell in your body. So every cell in your body needs a tiny amount of those. So it's pretty important for all sort of functions. But yeah, brain clarity, decision making, energy levels, and feeling good. They're pretty cheap. You can get some pretty cheap stuff that's pretty good. I'm sure Cam probably talked about it the other week, but they're just like a necessity for me now. Through spring, through summer, they're always there and just cheap and easy, bang for buck. It's not going to get much better than that. I talked a little bit about stress earlier. I mentioned it. One of the things I didn't realize for most of my life is that stress up here manifests in our body. Um, Classic example, I'm going to use my wife because she's not here and she can't hate me for it, but she gets incredibly tight shoulders and neck and jaw. Like she'll come home and because I'm such a good bastard, I'll give her a little shoulder rub and it's like fucking rubbing concrete. It's horrendous. Don't tell her I said that, but like it's just so tight because she's just a little bit hunched and tenses her jaw. She says it feels amazing when I give it a rub, and loosen it up. But, it's not stress from her doing anything physical. She doesn't have a physical job. It's stress from up here. She's a nurse, so she cops it from patients and fucking all sorts all day. And it's that stress, how she holds it is in her shoulders and her jaw in particular. I tend to hold it in my jaw and my back and my legs. They just get tight and stiff. That's where that tension goes to. But the other thing also is my guts. Quite often I'll get a crook guts when I'm highly stressed or worried about things or under pressure. So understanding that your body is actually trying to tell you something in those things. And a side note on that, another lesson I learned a few weeks ago was I haven't actually done any fitness since probably sort of end of July, really. I join in occasionally at the boxing gym, but it's all about putting that energy on farm, spending all my energy actually doing fucking farm work this time of the year. So I haven't done much exercising, and I was feeling, like I said earlier, been feeling pretty average the last few weeks. And I thought, oh, maybe I need to, fill my cup a little bit and get the body moving. And because I know when I'm fitter and stronger, I have more energy. So I was like, I'll go out and I'll start, 3 times a week, just doing a bit of a workout and do something a bit different, get the body moving again. And um, so I went out there and did like a half an hour session, and I thought on my past experience pretty easy. But I tell you what, the next 2 days I was fucked even worse. It was just about the straw that broke the camel's back. So understanding that physical exercise, whether it's going for a run or a bike or whatever you like to do, is still stress. It's still stressful for your body. 99 times out of 100, it's a beneficial stress and it's a mental release often from getting off the farm. Um, but understand that stress is stress, and your body doesn't know that you're trying to do a good thing. Often, it's more exercise on top of an already fatigued system. So just be aware. Have a check in with yourself. When I do running events and that I have a checklist when I'm running. So I tend to do endurance events, and when you're running for a long amount of time, sort of your technique and your form while you're running tends to just mold into shit. And it can all fall apart quite quickly. So every sort of 15, 20 minutes, I do this body check in, and it starts at my feet. What part of, for an example, what part of my foot is hitting the ground? Is it the right part? Check. Am I slightly leaning forward at my ankles in terms of my body is leaning forward ever so slightly to make running more efficient? Check. Um, when my foot hits the ground, is there a slight, do I have soft knees or are they stiff? Check. And I work my way up the body, basically checking in that my posture's all good, my running technique's all good, and carry on. But also, before I go for a run, I have a different checklist, and that checklist looks like, have I eaten well the last 12 hours? And I particularly do this if I'm not feeling that well. What have I eaten today? Has it been good stuff? Has it been bad stuff? Have I drunk enough water and electrolytes today? Yes or no? Um, have I had a physically labor intensive day today? Yes or no? So I have this little checklist. If I'm feeling a bit shit, I go through this checklist. And if I'm getting a lot of no's, then it's probably a good idea. Like I'll get more out of fixing those no's. So eating a better meal, taking on some water and electrolytes, doing those things to turn those no's into yeses, than I will from actually going from the run, because I'm just going to further stress an underperforming body, if that makes sense. Does everyone understand that concept? So having a little check-in with yourself about your stress is pretty cool. Um, my favorite thing on farm these days is having snacks. I have a snack box at the cow shed. It's my favorite thing. It's there with my electrolytes, snacks and mini breaks. Sometimes it's just 2 or 3 minutes to have a sit down, get the load off your feet, have a drink of water. Um, I love the M's Power Cookies or the OSM bars. I always have a bit of chocolate treat there because chocolate makes everything better some days. And bananas, some really good, powerful snacks there. But just that 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes if you got it. That mini breaks just to physically and mentally refresh before you go into the next job. It's like my old mentality was, I fucking don't have time, don't need it. Let's just get on with the next job and we'll get more done for the day. But when you understand, um, productivity, and, if that 5 minute break makes the next 3 hours more productive, then it was totally worth it for the rest of your day. And you got to remember, farming's a marathon. It's the ultra marathon of life. It's not a sprint. We're not there to sprint every day, because sooner or later the gasket blows. Um, in terms of your physical body, probably Storm might have gone through this already, but one of the things, farmers generally have really strong upper body. We use our hands and arms out in front of us a shit ton. I know myself, I've got good biceps, great shoulders. My chest and core are good, because that's what I use every single day. Um, but one of the real benefits, that I try and target when I do strength training is the weaknesses. And for me, that's the posterior side, so my back, the old glutes, hamstrings, and my legs in particular, because they don't get as much hard yakka, as the upper body does. So work on your strengths the most. Work on your weaknesses the most. And I guess there's probably some carryover into other areas of life. But if you are looking to get fit and strong, um, the weaknesses are the hardest ones to work on, but they're the ones you got to do the most. And finally, one of the other things I came up with was the dinner table. And again, it's a bit of a check-in for me for my, I guess, awareness about myself and how things are going for me. My resilience as well, it plays into. But if you've got a good dining table, it's got 4 legs on it, right? You can do a lot. You can do more than just eat your dinner on that table. They're nice and strong and sturdy. Um, that's sort of how I see me on the table, and I've got 4 legs that hold me up. For me, first leg is stress. So understanding your stress levels, and most importantly, having some tools at your disposal that work for you to deal with that stress. Sometimes for me, it's going and punching the bag. Sometimes it's writing things out. Sometimes it's catching up with some mates for a beer, different tools for different situations, but having some ways to relieve that stress. Number two, sleep, we've already talked about, very important. Often those two fail together. When you get stressed, you don't sleep. Three, nutrition. Whenever I think about nutrition now, I think of more than food. I think about that water and electrolytes, but I also think about the people I'm around, everything I can consume with my eyes and ears. So what I'm scrolling on social media, what movies I'm watching, what news I'm fucking watching, the people I'm listening to, the people around me are all energy that you consume, and it pays to have positive energies that you're taking in rather than negative. I still fall into that trap sometimes of taking in some poor stuff, and it really does affect your mentality and your thoughts and decision making as well. And the fourth is your movement, how your body gets through the day, I guess. Pretty simple. We often take our four limbs for granted until you don't have one of them, or you get injured, or your back goes, and you understand how important they are. So, they're my four legs of the table. Um, Pretty obvious when you got four good legs, when all those four areas are good, it's a lot easier to be positive. It's a lot easier to function at a high level, to be that professional farmer and professional husband or professional mother that we are. Um, those four things make it a lot easier. That's not how life goes, though. Often we're down to three. Dinner table with three legs will still do the job. You can still have dinner on it. But when you start getting down to two, things start getting really, really tricky. And it's as soon as you put more weight on that table, all of a sudden you're having a picnic on the floor. So for me, that's just a simple way of, I guess, having some of that awareness. How's my table? Where am I weak? What legs are missing? What's going to go? What's about to break? Simple things like that, because like I said, I'm a pretty simple man, but I like to have these figurative things I can pretty simply check in with and understand. I think, if you understand yourself well and you're aware of yourself, you can really be proactive with your mental health and your physical health and your farming, and you're prepared for those challenges that come, because we know it as farmers, we don't dictate the payout or the price of our lambs, or the price of our crops, or the weather, or the politicians. We have all these challenges that come at us, that we have no control over. And it's just so much easier to hit those challenges feeling good, um, being productive, and I guess most importantly, with good perspective and attitude towards them. So if you go in positive, it's a lot easier to come out the other side positive rather than negative. So that's probably about all. I see it's 20 to 9. I think I saw a question pop up. Am I right there, Bex?
Yep, there is one there from
Brilliant.
Katie, just on what brand of
Yeah.
electrolytes you use.
Yep. So I use a few different ones actually. Not too much rhyme or reason. So my main go-to when I'm really under the pump and working hard in springtime, is an electrolyte called Tailwind. So that's what I use for my endurance running. So that is a really good level of electrolytes. It's a really strong brew, but it also comes with energy. Hence why it's used from running. It's really easily digested energy. So I'll use that in the springtime. I'll have that at the cow shed, because sometimes I don't get lunch. Sometimes it's a 14-hour day straight, and I need to get fuel in. The motorbike doesn't start if it's got no fuel in it. So you've got to keep that tank going, and it is like fucking go juice. It's probably the closest thing to cocaine I've ever had that's legal, all right? So it's pretty good stuff. Like I ran 85 Ks last year down in Westport, and that was my main fuel. It's pretty high powered stuff. No good if you're on a diet and you're just having it for shits and gigs because it's pretty high in calories. But it is the bee's knees. I only pull that out when I'm doing long runs or I'm really under the pump on the farm. The other one I've used is Hunt Smart, which is a New Zealand company designed for hunters. Comes in a little sachet, so you can have it in your pocket or whatever. If you're out the back fencing or spraying gorse or whatever, you can just whip out a sachet and chuck it in your drink bottle and shake it up and away you go. Again, the same as Tailwind, it comes with energy in it. It's just not as potent, not as powerful. And I simply brought that. I use that because I know the person that makes it, and it's a little side business for them, and it's cool that there's something specific for hunters and farmers out there. The other one I've simply gone to the chemist. You can get salt tablets, which are cheap and easy. Like it's probably, I don't know what it was, $50 for 90 tablets. You don't necessarily have to have one every day or whatever, but a couple of 2 or 3 of those on a hard day. It's pretty cheap, bang for buck. The other one I've used at the moment is Musashi. Actually make a electrolyte that's just electrolytes, no energy in it. So it's just those electrolytes in a powder, and it was pretty cheap and easy. They're not overly expensive for what they do, and if you want to be real cheap, you can just chuck some salt and some water and fucking down it like a man. Bit rough, but obviously it's just the sodium. Doesn't have that magnesium and calcium and potassium, but salt's the big one, obviously. So unless you've got some trouble with blood pressure and that sort of thing, consult your doctor. But a little bit of salt's actually pretty good because that's what you sweat the most out of. So yeah, they're my go-tos basically for those. Have we got any others? Thank you. You're welcome,
Yeah, any
Kate.
other questions?
Good to see you out running and swimming too, Kate. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just asking if there are any other questions. Drop them in the chat or speak up now. We have run a little over time, but I mean, it's such good chat. So yeah, I mean, you guys, obviously, if you had to leave, you would have left. And so it's cool to carry on. So any last burning questions for Kane? Oh, we've got him here.
I did actually have a question I've got written down from social media the other day. It was the best exercise to start with for farmers. This person was wanting to start their fitness journey, I guess, and get fit and strong. Quite simply, I think it's hugely important that you just do something that you enjoy or something you're curious about. Often we have a sport growing up that we might have seen on telly. For me, it was boxing. I'd always watch Mike Tyson when in the heyday. He was the man. So I used to see those free to air on a Sunday afternoon, I think, in New Zealand. And I was always curious about it, but there was no boxing gyms around. So, you might have seen a sport that you saw when you were young and curious about it. Start with that. Start with something you know you're going to enjoy, because that's one of the keys to sticking with it is either enjoying it from the get-go or creating a passion through interest and then enjoying it once you've satisfied some of that curiosity. Or usually you create some passion and enjoyment off the back of that. So just start with something you love and enjoy. But bang for buck, number one exercise is the farmer's carry. Great full body workout, great for your posture, great for your strength, and it's very safe for young and old to do. The farmer's carry, the humble farmer's carry. We've got one of the best exercises in the world named after us. Pretty cool, I reckon.
That's awesome. Great advice.
Brilliant.
Anybody else got any burning questions?
That's awesome.
I was gonna say I'll definitely echo that. Like, find something you love and something you're curious about. I've had been on that journey myself for the last year and a half, 2 years. Never did I think, if you'd said to me 3 years ago that I'd be powerlifting, that'd be a thing. But piqued my interest one day, got curious about it. Now that's 4 times a week in the gym at 5:30 in the morning. Never did I think it was going to be me, man. But it's just find something you're interested in, go on that learning journey, wrap some good support around you and a good community. And it's amazing the gains you can make and how that flows on to everything else in your life. Just looking after that, that physical fitness supports your mental fitness so much, which makes you more effective, efficient, productive, and just find more joy in life. So it's pretty epic. But you've given us.
I think it just makes you a better human, right? Just makes you a better human, right?
I don't know. Ask everyone else around.
It does.
Maybe not.
99% of people, just when you look after yourself physically and mentally, you're a pretty good human. I reckon you can do a lot for others. Because you have that time and space and energy to give, and the more you give, the more you get back. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Hey, now, in the essence of time, and you are such a humble bloke, Kane, because there are so many things I want to share with everyone else here who stayed on the call this far that you have been up to that people can go out and actually get their hands on. Not only have you had this hour and a bit of insight from Kane, Kane's book, Tools for the Top Paddock. It's an epic book. Go out and get your hands on that one. I'll send out with the recording, I'll send out links to all these bits and pieces so you can see what Kane's been up to. But it is such a good read and it contains a heap of these practical tips as well, and many, many more. So great Christmas gift for anyone. Get your hands on it. Also, as I sort of alluded to before, and I think Kane's got his on too, he's got a whole merch range of Farmfit gear, and they've just got some cool slogans. I mean, it's sort of live fit, farm fit, cool slogans, cool, proud to be a farmer, and out there kind of looking after yourself and looking after animals, land, your farming businesses and stuff. Do the mahi, get the treats, cool branded gear. So that link will be in the follow-up as well. Also, probably a shout out, Kane was one of my first podcast guests, I think number 4 actually, back in 2022. So if you guys haven't had a listen, there's an extended version of kind of this conversation back in a few years ago now, when we were probably a bit greener in our thinking in some of this space. So it's probably cool to go back and have a listen if you wanted to hear more of our rambling yarns. So you can find that if you look up on any of your podcast channels, the whole story. You can find our back catalogue of podcasts, and Kane Brisco is number 4. So yeah, have a listen to that one. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Kane, and everybody who's attended.
You're welcome.
It's been epic, as always. And thank you so much again to Beef and Lamb New Zealand for fronting up and supporting this. I think it's just been such a cool series. Everyone who's come along tonight will get links to the other recordings as well. So you can go back if you missed Storm or Conrad. We'll send those all out. And yeah, I guess we're in the run up to Christmas, so I hope you all have a safe and happy and enjoyable festive season. Don't get hung up in the stress of it all. At the end of the day, it's all about just having an awesome time with loved ones and really taking some time out for yourself as well. So yeah, don't get caught up in the stress and the hype, and just make sure you enjoy it and stay safe out there. And thank you so much for your time this evening, and yeah, I guess that is us, and we will see you on the flip side.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone. Pleasure.
Thank you.